Good afternoon. This afternoon we're going to see that there is evidence for God everywhere. That there is evidence for God all around us, and all we have to do is look for it. You see, God has left his fingerprints everywhere on the world that we live in, and all we have to do is look for them, and all we have to do is find them. And it's not even very difficult to find God's fingerprints. It's not very difficult to find evidence for God. It is all around us in the world we live in. So this afternoon we are looking for evidence that God exists. And I've got a question. Now we start with the younger. Do we know who this is? You know who that is, Joshua? It's a famous detective. Listen to Uncle Andrew. Right. All right, yeah. Okay, I thought you might know who that is. So that's Sherlock Holmes. He's a really, really famous detective. And we're going to be, a bit like Sherlock Holmes, we're going to be looking for evidence. And we're going to do this by observing and asking a question. We're going to look at we're going to look at nature, we're going to look at the creation, and we're going to ask a simple question. Here's the design. Where's the designer? But before this, I just want to put in a contrast. So I am a mechanical design engineer. That is my job. My job is all about design. Me and my team, I lead a team of engineers. Every day of our working week, we are focused on design. We are very familiar with design. And when we're designing something, the one thing that we try more than anything to eliminate is chance. As design engineers, we don't want chance. We want things to do exactly what we've asked them to do. We don't like chance. We try to eliminate chance. And the design process goes something like this. Our company says we want this new machine or new mechanism, and we have a think about what they want, and we come up with some ideas of how it might work, and we test and we make those ideas and we test them, and whichever one works the best we use. It goes something like that, and through that whole process we try to eliminate chance. We want it to do exactly as we want it to work, exactly as we designed it to do. Now this is a Spartan 360AB. Now you may not have no clue what one of those is, but it's a machine that I created. The customer came to us and they said, I want something to mix sand. Doesn't matter why you want to mix sand, but you need to do it in foundries. Anyway, they wanted to do it at 60 tons an hour. They wanted powered movement, they wanted remote control, they wanted it to move up and down by 3 meters, they wanted it in red, and they wanted the jib to be 6 meters long. And that machine does exactly what the customer wants. It does specifically what the customer asked for. Now, is it design or is it chance? If it does exactly what the customer wants, is it design or chance? Well, I know it's design because I personally designed it. I designed that machine, and that's a snapshot from my computer when I was designing. So I know that machine that does exactly what the customer wants came about because it was intended, because it was designed by me to do exactly what the customer wants. So if that's the case with sand mixers or bridges or cars or any other object like that, why would it be any different when we look at the natural world? When we look around at the natural world, when we see plants and animals and birds, and we see them functioning in a fantastically intricate way, when we see things that work perfectly together, when we see things that do a very specific job, when we look at that, why would it be anything other than design? We're used to design every day in our lives. Things are designed to work they are. So when we see it in nature, why do people look at it and see chance? Because that's not what I see. When I look at nature, I see God, the great designer. I do not see chance. I see things working intricately together. Let me give you an example. This is a hummingbird. Now, I'm no zoologist. As I've already said, I'm a mechanical design engineer, but I don't need to be a zoologist to see the design in that picture. You've got the bird that can hover. Its wings beat faster than most other birds, so it can hover in an absolute precise precision. So it can get under that flower, and then its beak, it's really long and thin, it's perfectly shaped, it's the right length to get into that flower. And I look at that, and I see that all working together wonderfully, and I see design. I see the hands of a great designer who came up with that design, who made that flower and that bird work perfectly together. When I look at that, I don't see chance. Now, some say that, well, these things happened over time by natural selection, that certain animals and birds developed features over time. Well, if this bird started off with a short beak, what did it eat when its beak was still short? Right? Its beak needs to be a certain length to get into that flower. Natural selection suggests that features enhance over time. Well, what did it eat for the thousands of years it was growing a longer beak to go into that flower? Well, I don't know. I look at that and I see design. I do not see chance. Now, Joshua, do you think you could come up here and help me? Marvellous. Right. It's not arduous, I promise you. All right, it's not difficult. So, yeah, arduous may be arduous, the difficult. Right, I'm going to show you another picture. Let's see, let's come about here. Right, so it's another picture. Tell me what you see. Just describe what you see. It's not difficult.
A flower.
Yeah. But it's very similar to the last picture I showed you.
A bird.
A bird, right. And its wings are hovering. And its wings, this is a really fantastic picture that stops its wings using slow motion technology, but that wing's beating thousands of times a minute, right? And its beak fits perfectly into the flower, absolutely perfectly in. Now, when you look at that, tell me what you think. Do you think that happened by chance, or do you think that was designed by somebody to work perfectly together like that? You're unsure. That's all right. You can be unsure. I think it happened by design, right? I don't think that was chance at all. Go on, you go and you take a seat. I think you see a bit there. Right, I look at that and I see design. I don't see chance. So here's our challenge. Here's the design. Where's the designer? When you see something working perfectly together, when you see something working so intricately, where's the designer? There's the design. It works perfectly. I don't see chance in that at all. Another example, that's a curlew. Right, you're looking at me, right? That's a bird called a curlew, Joshua, right? And that has a really long beak, but it has an entirely different kind of long beak. It doesn't eat nectar from a flower, it eats little worms and grubs that are buried deep into the sand, right? Deep into the sand. And so what it does is it pushes its beak right into the sand to get the little worms and the grubs. And the tip of its beak is flexible and sensitive, so it can move and bend and get under rocks and under tufts of grass and all sorts of things to find the food that it wants. Its feet are its toes on its feet are particularly long, right? So it doesn't sink into the mud and the sand where it is walking. It may have a long beak, but it can't flap its wings very fast like the hummingbird, so it could never feed off a flower like the hummingbird, but that's not what it was designed to do. It was designed to eat worms and grubs in an estuary. And I've seen this bird in a place called Welney Wash, near where I used to live, down near Peterborough. And I looked at these birds feeding, and I saw them inside, and I never once thought, oh, isn't chance a wonderful thing? I never once thought, oh, that's a coincidence, so that just seems to work together. When I saw it, I saw design. I saw something that was designed to do perfectly what it was. You see, there's another picture of the curlew. You can see its head is right inserted into the sand, and its beak is going down to get the grubs. And so, here's the design. Where's the designer? That's the challenge for you and I. When you see things working perfectly together, the question is, where is the designer? Here's another one for you. Now these pictures I took in Kenya. It's the weaver bird. And you can see here, these are the nests made by the weaver bird. And the nests in themselves are a fantastic piece of design. What happens is, this weaver bird over here, can you see that long piece of green vegetation or leaf? It picks those off a plant, and it flies up into the tree, and using its beak and its feet, it starts to weave them together. It's a bit like knitting, I suppose, but it's weaving them together. And you can see here, it weaves them all together into these nests, and it weaves them around the branches, and it leaves a hole at the bottom, and then the bird can get up inside that nest, and it can lay its eggs and rear its young on there. And the bird creates them and brings them, creates those. And the bird is perfectly designed to do that. That bird can work upside down, it can hold itself, it can weave the leaves into that nest. So when we look at that, and you see another picture there, you can see the bird inside the nest. You can see the way that the whole nest is woven together. That looks to me like it was designed that way. Certainly the bird designed the nest that way, but the bird looks like it, to me anyway, looks like it was designed to work like that. So here again is the challenge. Here's the design. Where's the designer? You see these animals working perfectly together. The way that they created, the bird is perfectly designed to do that. So where's the designer? This is me flying a golden eagle by the name of Samson, and it was an absolute privilege to do that. When you are up close and personal to a golden eagle like that, you really get a sense of the power and just the sheer power and elegance of it. And we're down in Cornwall. We're on the cliff tops. You can just see the sea behind me, and the wind's blowing in over the cliffs. And the eagle, it just reached its wings out, and it just slightly twisted its wings, and the breeze just lifted it up, and it just effortlessly lifted up on the breeze and soared away. And like I said, it was a true privilege to see that and to feel the strength of the talons on your hand. Good job you had a thick leather glove on, or you'd have really known about it. And to see that, and to see its beak that was designed perfectly to eat the food that it was eating, and to see how it could just see so far. And you know what? I looked at that beautiful bird, and I saw the elegance and the ease at which it just lifted on the wind and soared away. And I never once thought, isn't chance a wonderful thing? I never once thought, oh, that looks like a bit of a coincidence. I saw that, and I saw the hands of a designer. I saw the design coming together. I saw something working like it was meant to. And here's a close-up of the same eagle. You can see there the eye and the beak perfectly designed to function together so that eagle could do what it needs to do. And so again, here's our challenge. Here's the design. Where's the designer? When we see these things working together perfectly, like they do, you've got to think, well, where did that come from? Where did that perfect working together come from? Is it chance? Or did somebody design it like that? And I put to you that God designed it like that. God designed it to work perfectly together. This is a peregrine falcon. It is no understatement to say it is a perfectly designed hunting machine. This bird represents the absolute elegance in hunting. And again, I don't spend all my time playing with birds of prey, but again I was privileged to handle one of these again down in Devon. You can see me there with the bird on my glove, that peregrine falcon, and we were out hunting with these birds. We were deliberately going hunting, and fortunately for us, less fortunate for the pheasant, we were going through this field, and this pheasant came up, and the bird was on my glove, and I moved my hand like that and threw the bird into the air. And what it does is it hunts in a very specific way. It climbs up and it climbs up, so the pheasant's going away, and it's almost like it's not seen the pheasant because it's not going after the pheasant. It climbs up and it climbs up and climbs up until it's really high up, but it knows the pheasant's there. It's seen it, and then it comes over the top and it starts to come down, and you can see it here. That isn't my picture, by the way. That's Google's a wonderful thing, but you can see that there. It folds its wings behind, it tucks them in, and it's almost like bullet shaped, and it comes flying down at an incredible speed. In fact, in a dive, the peregrine falcon can go over 200 miles an hour in a dive. It's an incredible design. And it comes flying in, and the pheasant's all under wires, and it just bang straight into the pheasant, and that was the end of the pheasant. And that is a picture we took while we were there, and you can see the falcon there. It's now opened its wings. The feathers of the poor pheasant have gone to one side, and then it takes the pheasant to the ground, and that's its food. And I looked at that and I thought, isn't God absolutely wonderful? Because you can see it there. You see the beak. It's now got a piece of meat in its beak, and you can see its claws there that are there for holding the meat. And I looked at all that, and I saw the way that went together, and I thought, isn't God absolutely wonderful? Isn't the design that God put into place absolutely wonderful? So we look at these things. That's another falcon, a different falcon, and we see the beak that does perfectly what it's meant to do. We see the eyes perfectly positioned to see its prey, the wings, the feathers, the claws. We see all those things. And I saw all those things and I thought, isn't nature amazing? What a wonderful design. Isn't God absolutely amazing the way he's designed together? Now this picture might take a little bit of explaining, but I'll try and explain what's going on in this picture. So that is a hawk upside down. That's the lad, can't remember his name, but he was flying the hawk off a lure, and this is the lure. And what you do is at the end of the lure there's a piece of meat or something which the hawk wants, and you swing it round your head like that, and somebody launches the hawk, and the hawk comes towards you, and as you're swinging it around you try and fool the hawk by putting it in different directions. And the precision at which the hawk flies or the falcon is absolutely phenomenal. You could feel it as you're swinging it. It was coming past us, and it was just touching us with the edge of its wings as it went past us. It's the precision at which it flew was absolutely amazing. And at this point, the little lad, he was just trying to confuse it. He was going like this, and then he threw it up in the air. And in an instant, the hawk that was coming at falcon, that came in like that, just went like that, inverted, went upside down, and smack, hit the lure, bang, in midair. And I saw all that and thought, isn't that a wonderful design? I never thought, oh, that's a chance, that's a coincidence that it's able to work like that. I saw that all and thought, isn't that absolutely fantastic? So here's the design. Here's something that functions perfectly together, that does everything that it's meant to. So where's the designer? Where's the creator? Where's the person that put this wonderful design together? You see, nature screams design. The world that we live in screams design. When you look at the world and you see those things functioning together, it says design. It never says chance. You see things working perfectly together, and you see a design, you see a plan, you see a purpose, you see something that somebody came up with and said that'll work together. And every one of those things that are birds that I show you, I have personally witnessed. I haven't shown you anything that I haven't personally witnessed. And what I've seen, and I could have shown you many more pictures of things I've seen over the years, I saw it was truly amazing. And when I looked at those birds and those animals, I saw a design. I saw something that had purpose behind it. I saw something that was created to do exactly what it did, something that functioned together. I never once saw chance. In God's word, the Bible, God sets down a challenge. The Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Is it by your understanding," this is God talking to Job, "that the hawk soars and spreads its wings towards the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high?" In other words, God is saying to Job, did you create the hawk? Did you create the eagle? Did you put together the things, that the world? Did you make these things happen? And the answer is obviously no. Job didn't do those things, because God is saying to Job, I did those things. I put together the world. I created the world. I designed the world. The hawk, the eagle, and all the other animals and nature. I created all that. says God. See, the simple truth is that God's fingerprints are everywhere in the world that we live in. God's fingerprints are all over the world we live in, and all we have to do is look for them. Another design, but one of a slightly different type. God's Word, the Bible. Over 1 million words. 66 books, 40 or so authors, written over hundreds, if not thousands of years, yet it has one consistent message. It fits together perfectly. It never contradicts itself. It lays out God's plan and purpose from the beginning to the end. It has stood the test of time over thousands of years. And you can see from the marking and the notes that I put in there, you see I've marked where it links together. And you can see in that marking the precision and the accuracy of God's Word. And so when we look at God's Word, when we see the way that it works together, when we see that design, we are forced to ask the question, well, here's the design, where's the designer? When we look at God's Word and we see all that, that's the obvious question. Where's the designer? And it is, of course, God. You see, the simple truth is that God's design and God's fingerprints are everywhere. They're all around the world that we live in. And all we have to do is look for them. And I am flabbergasted. I really am flabbergasted. I can't understand it when people look at the world that we live in, when they look at nature, when they look at creation and say it happened by chance. It happened over a long period of time. I spend my whole life in design. And I know the difference between something that was designed and something that came across by chance. And I look at the world we live in and I see God's design. I see God's handiwork. I see something that God put together for you and I to see. So the simple truth is that God's design, God's fingerprints are everywhere. So what are you and I going to do about that? Thank you.